find an identity. Why?
I think because the moral horror of Bosnia is so total that it almost defeats reason. And one wants to try and penetrate through the surface to try and understand how mankind can go so devastatingly awry. And I think the mission of Bill Hagelin from Seattle, Bob Kirchner, and Laurie Boland from Chicago is to prove that humanitarianism is more than a word, more than a gesture, but actually can be acted out in Bosnia.
And so what is it that drives these people?
A sense of justice, a sense of establishing a historical record, and a sense of bringing closure to the survivors of this massacre.
Well, unfortunately, death brings me here. I would prefer not to be here. I think all these people prefer not to be here. Because if we're here, that means people had to die for us to be here.
Bill Hagelin came to Bosnia to find bodies, and more importantly, to find out the truth about them. In Lajita, a village on the Serb side of Bosnia, the former teacher of comparative literature turned forensic investigator applies the same techniques he used in Seattle to track the infamous Green River serial killer, the same consciousness that drew him to other mass graves in Central America and Rwanda. Here in Bosnia, he'll be bringing evidence to war crimes prosecutors and closure to corpses' survivors.
What brings us here is to try to collect evidence, possibly identify individuals, hopeful that that kind of information will be instrumental in bringing somebody to justice, maybe stopping this kind of thing in the future, but really that these dead people won't have died in vain.
The first day we joined Hagelin and his group of international volunteers, they were still trying to answer the most basic question about Lajita.
Basically, what we're doing here is assessing this to be a grave or not to be a grave.
American spy satellites following the flight of thousands of refugees from the fall of the so-called safe haven of Srebrenica in July 1995 had identified Lajita as a likely repository for the corpses of murdered men and boys captured by the Bosnian Serb army. Even more important to war crimes prosecutors, at least 2 survivors recognized the Lajita village school and its gymnasium as the place that links indicted war criminal and Bosnian Serb commanding general Ratko Mladic to the massacre.
He came to see the prisoners while we were in the gym at the school. He came and stayed for 4 or 5 minutes, and as soon as he left, the execution started. It lasted all day long. They were taking men to the field and shooting them.
But in the year between the killing and Bill Hagelin's investigation, the Lajita field may have been tampered with. And although some of his young assistants had found bone fragments and spent shells in the road alongside the field, so far Bill and his team had dug 3 feet deep and found virtually nothing of significance.
Let's get a trowel here. Just enough shoes.
Or almost nothing. No bones, no bodies, but a shoe and an ambiguous stink, and perhaps its source.
There's a trough of grayish mud down there that's different from the other soil, and then we need to find out more about that layer, if there's something in it there or not.
What's beside it? There's that a rock? Well, just put a flag there.
David Del Pino from Chile is part of the Physicians for Human Rights team.
We are trying to recover as much information as we can to give to the tribunal a better idea about what happened here.
Grab level that all off, get a nice photograph, have it back up, dig a big hole there, and then drain it.
Using backhoe driver Cosme Parks' uniquely delicate touch, Hagelin's team dug for days, deeper and wider across the Lajita field, before finding the source of the smell. As many as 100 or more people who perished here. Finding also evidence survivors' memories of these cloth scraps found at Lajita School are accurate.
They would first blindfold them, give them some water, put them in trucks, take them out to the fields, and shoot them.
These individuals were blindfolded.
Horrors like this just strengthen everyone's resolve.
to find an identity.